So, what happens when two of the absolute biggest stars in the streaming world, who also happen to be co-owners of the same massive company, have their private lives just explode in public? Today, we're diving deep into the whole scandal with Mizkif and Emiru. They're both pillars of the creator org OTK, and their personal conflict has turned into a massive firestorm that has the entire industry watching.
And it all kicked off with this single, absolutely shocking statement from Emiru, live on stream to thousands of people. I mean, an accusation like this is always a huge deal. But for it to come from one co-owner of a major organization against another, that's basically unheard of. This wasn't just a personal fight anymore. It was a full-blown crisis at the very top of a creator empire.
So, how does a private relationship between two really powerful creators even get to a public breaking point like this? Well, the whole story of how this blew up starts with one single tell-all live stream on Kick, where Emiru just decided, you know what, I'm not staying quiet anymore.
This timeline really shows you just how deeply their lives were intertwined professionally. It all starts back in late 2021. She moves into the OTK house. By January 2022, she's an official creator. And then boom, just 1 year later, she's promoted to co-owner. She's his business partner at the highest level. But look at that last entry, an incident at TwitchCon in October 2025. Apparently, that was the final straw, the catalyst that led directly to her going public just a few days later.
Now, during that stream, Emiru confirmed something the community had been speculating about for years, that she and Mizkif had actually been in a private romantic relationship. And this wasn't just some juicy gossip, okay? This was a fundamental piece of the entire puzzle. It completely reframed their whole dynamic from just business partners to something way more personal, way more complex, and it set the stage for all the serious allegations that came next.
Okay, so now we get to the real heart of it, the claims and the counterclaims. Emiru came forward with a whole series of specific, really severe allegations. And Mizkif, he didn't stay silent. He came back and built a pretty detailed counter-narrative of his own. So let's break down exactly what each side had to say.
Emiru basically broke her allegations down into 4 main categories. She accused Mizkif of sexual assault, a long pattern of psychological and domestic abuse, stalking and harassment after she tried to cut contact, and finally threats of blackmail to keep her from ever speaking out. So, the most serious allegation was sexual assault. Emiru described this one specific, really harrowing moment where she says a line was crossed from consensual to non-consensual. Now look at the response. This is key. Mizkif never explicitly denies this specific event on his stream. Instead, he uses a classic tactic. He reframes their entire relationship as mutually toxic. It's a really strategic choice, right? It's designed to shift the whole focus from a one-sided act to a narrative where they're both to blame.
And we saw that same pattern with the harassment claims. Emiru came with evidence. She showed screenshots of what she called a relentless campaign of unwanted messages. And again, instead of talking about those specifics, Mizkif just leans on that mutual aggression idea. He admits to his own bad behavior, like punching walls, but then he immediately pivots and claims that Emiru was also violent towards him.
But here's where Mizkif's defense took a really startling turn. In the middle of trying to defend himself, he actually made some pretty huge admissions. He confirmed on his own stream that he was doing some very controlling things, telling Emiru how to dress, stopping her from traveling alone. So even as he's pushing back on the biggest claims, he's openly admitting to stuff that, let's be real, many people would call abusive on its own.
And then, on the blackmail allegation that he threatened to destroy her, Mizkif's defense totally switched gears. He goes from deflecting to straight-up questioning her motives. He brings up this personal letter he says Emiru wrote about their future, about marriage. And the implication there is crystal clear. He's trying to paint her not as a victim, but as a scorned ex-lover, suggesting this is all coming from heartbreak, not from actual harm.
Now, this is so important. Mizkif's defense wasn't just heard in a vacuum. To really get why the community reacted the way it did, you have to look at his history. His past public controversies created this very specific lens that a lot of people were seeing these new allegations through.
This slide pretty much sums up that essential context. You've got the public breakup with his ex, Maya Higa, that resurfaced clip showing aggression, and of course the big one, the 2022 Adriana Lee scandal, where he was accused of covering up a sexual assault. Now, regardless of the truth of each of those things, the overall effect was a damaged reputation. For a lot of viewers, he already had what you might call a credibility deficit on these exact issues.
With no cops or judges involved, this whole conflict is playing out in the court of public opinion. And in this court, platforms like Reddit and X are the courtroom, and all the big streamers who react to it, they act as both commentators and the jury, shaping the story for millions of people. And in the creator world, the verdict from this court can be way more damaging to your career than any legal one.
So, where does this leave everybody? Well, these public accusations have basically created this state of unresolved crisis, and the fallout is still just rippling out, hitting their organization, their careers, and the industry as a whole. Let's take a look at the aftermath.
Right at the center of all this is one true king, and their response has been complete and total silence. And that's a huge deal because it's so different from how they've handled scandals in the past. But this time is different, right? The fight is between two of their own owners. If they take a side, they risk tearing the whole company apart. So this silence, it's not just them being slow, it's a sign of deep organizational paralysis.
The potential long-term consequences here are just massive. For Mizkif, this is a fight to save his brand from what could be irreparable damage. For Emiru, by speaking out, she's now been positioned as a really powerful voice for creator safety. For OTK, this is a crisis that shakes the very foundation of their brand, which was built on this idea of friendship. And for the whole industry, this has become a massive case study on power, abuse, and accountability.
At the end of the day, this entire firestorm really just boils down to one central unanswered question that this whole mess has exposed for everybody to see. When the creators are the company, when they're the founders, the owners, and the stars, who holds them accountable? It's a question the streaming world is still desperately trying to figure out.